So, welcome everybody. This is the EdTech Austin Meetup. Just to make sure that you're in the right place. I know there's another meetup happening on the other side. This is education and technology, not coding or whatever else they're doing over there. Well, actually, tonight we are going to talk a little bit about coding. So I promised RuPaul that I would get through this as quickly as possible. We're going to do a computer changeover after some short announcements and recognitions. And then I'm turning it over to RuPaul and Sagis, who are going to be talking about, they're going to be leading tonight's programming. So just to go over the schedule so that we all know what's happening. We'll do some announcements and welcoming, which I've already done, so all we have left is announcements, really. Once RuPaul takes over, we've got some presentations from the community. Along with that, some brainstorming, a breakout session. You guys are going to actually do some hardcore work tonight, which is cool. Coming up with solutions to challenges. We'll share some successes and frustrations in computer science education here in Austin. Following that, we'll do some wrap-up stuff and next steps, action items, and then finally some open networking and discussion. I do want to leave the opportunity open for the lightning round, if that's okay with you. Yeah. So we do have the lightning round sign-up sheet that's behind Scott. If you want to, Scott, if you want to get us started on that, I don't know if anybody has had a chance. Lightning round, since I don't think I have it in the agenda, each meetup we do a spot for you or your organization to talk about something that's happening, something you want to share with the rest of us. 1 minute or less. And if it should take longer than 1 minute, talk to me and present at an upcoming meetup. So 1 minute, the sign-up sheet's coming around. Make sure you sign up for that. Okay, so a couple of announcements. Lightning round I mentioned. Join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter. We try to communicate through that. One thing that I'll talk about a little bit is our blog. We just got a shiny new logo and a new website. And I'm bound and determined to use it. And so I wrote my first blog post on there last week, and I listed all of the panel discussions for South by EDU that we're really jazzed about and that we hope that you will attend if you're attending South by. How many of y'all are going to South by EDU? Okay, cool. So you will benefit from that post. Go to edtechaustin.com/blog or click on the blog link. It's a really good list. And if you have a panel that isn't on there that you want listed, send me an email. I'm Sean Duffy, by the way, if I haven't met you before. And if you go on the meetup page, you can email me there. I'll also have, I think I have my email address on here somewhere, but I should be pretty easy to find. You can also find me on the website. Okay. I do want to point out we have an EdTech Austin panel. It's a core conversation that our members helped us to create, and it's on getting more ed into EdTech. So I'm really, really excited about it. Scott Lipton and Greg Garner, I don't think Greg is here tonight, they are going to be leading that conversation. It's on Tuesday morning of South by at 9 o'clock at the Hilton. If you go to that link, tinyurl.com/South by South or SXSW EdTech Austin. Sorry for the long tiny URL. But you can find it there. It's also in the blog post, so go to the blog. You can see it there as well. So I do want to point out Sapling Learning, who I will talk a little bit about tonight, who are sponsoring tonight's event. They are going to be at the South by Southwest EDU Education Expo. It's going to be a really great event. That's happening Tuesday, the 4th, from 2 to 8 p.m. We'll have that in the blog post wrap up from tonight with more details on that, where to go, what you'll see, and what it's all about. But it's free to attend, so if you don't have a pass for South by, you can still go to that, and it's going to be really cool. Our April meetup, right now we've got 2 folks who are planning on presenting. We don't really have anything on the agenda for May, June, July through the summer. So if you or somebody you know has a topic you want to present about, let me know and we'll get you scheduled. Karen couldn't be here. She's from Volunteer Spot. She wanted me to throw this out there. Techstars EDU, they're open for applications right now, and they have an impressive accelerator program that's offering lots of money for startups. And I was just reading through their website, and 100% of last year's companies were funded to the tune of about $15 million overall. So really, really great organization. Make sure that you check that out. That'll also be on the blog. Sapling, who is sponsoring tonight, they are looking for a partner development manager, and Bob Carlton is here. Bob's in the back. Make sure if that's something that you're interested in, talk to Bob. He'll fill you in on all the details. Okay. So a couple of introductions and thank yous. For those of you who have not been to EdTech Austin before, hopefully you read about it online on the meetup page. We are about the intersection of education and technology. We've got a couple of really cool things that we're working on right now. And tonight is a good example of kind of what we do. We just want to connect folks in those two camps and make sure that they're talking. That's really the biggest part of it. But most importantly, it's all about impacting digital literacy for students and impacting schools in the broadest way that we can. And just making sure that schools and people who are producing tools for schools are communicating. So we can't do any of this without our awesome sponsors. First of all, Capital Factory for giving us the space to do it and the time to do it, so thank you to them. But also, tonight, our food and drinks are provided by Sapling Learning, so thank you so much to them for doing that. We do have several other sponsors. They're all really great organizations. Pearson, Texans for Economic Progress, TeacherGraph, EverFi, and Famigo have all been generous sponsors for our meetup. So thank you to all of them, and thank you especially for tonight to Sapling Learning. Okay, so with that, I am now going to turn it over to Rapal. I think I did okay on time.
Yeah, well, we guarantee that nothing will go wrong. There's a lot of
yeah, seriously. So this is our first chance to test out our technology literacy.
What could possibly go wrong?
Actually, I'm going to take this. Do you need a Sky? It's like the clicker.
Actually, I don't know if it'll work on here. Should, right?
Should.
You ready?
All right, that wasn't bad. Oh, there you go. Do that. Okay, you know what? Turn to a neighbor and introduce yourself if you haven't done so already. Sorry for leaving you on the
John Conrad, so you can answer and pull that like what time you want me to.
I'll call you. All right. Thank you. Hey, John. I think it's confusing my. He was being out of my.
You're just going to have to school it.
Yeah, didn't like this.
Do you need me to put it over, or are you going to be all right?
It's only
Alright guys, I need your attention up here. Alright, so now that you know your neighbors, I would like to introduce to you Rapal Nathuji, who's going to be talking you through this whole computer science town hall meeting. So with that, take it away.
Thanks, Sean. So welcome again, because you can't be welcome enough times. So I had this up here, it's a bit redundant, but I want to thank Sean again and the EdTech team because they've let us get up here now 2 times to come up and talk about computer science. It's been an awesome venue and a great community to sort of reach out to and talk with. And yeah, thanks for that. And thanks also again to our sponsors. I also want to thank, my team that helped organize this, and Sagiz, who's here, Nati, who couldn't be here because she's studying this test or something important, and then Deepika and Sean again. So I think the most important thing for any meeting, I don't know about you guys, I've been to lots of meetings where I walk out of it, sometimes an hour, sometimes even 2 hours, and I just wonder, why did I waste 2 hours of my life for something that I feel we did absolutely, got nothing accomplished, and nothing ever happens coming out of that meeting, right? So the goal today, I wanted to make sure that we're all on the same page and we all see it, so that we can have a target in mind, both for this meeting and then when we walk out of here. Because number 5 says we have to go forth and conquer, and I'm all about number 5. And conquer is vague and ambiguous, so you can conquer whatever way, shape, or form, but specifically to go conquer the world and teach CS everywhere we go. So the goal is really to launch a community here, right? So I think and I'll go into, how many of you here, I think in September was it, that we talked about TEALs? A few of you, right? So okay, this will be new to most of you. So I'll mention that later, but this isn't about TEALs, it's about a broader vision and a broader goal, which is to bring together people from across Austin, teachers, administrators, industry, anybody who really has either a vested interest or just a personal interest to improving computer science opportunities for students here in Austin. And not just talk about it, because we can sit in a room, we can have, kumbaya and be like, everybody should know this, and we should go do that, and come up with 500 ideas that never go anywhere. And I've been to lots of meetings like that, they're great, you feel good. It's like, you get this awesome euphoric high for an hour, and then next week it's like, wow, nothing actually came out of any of those ideas. The goal here is to do the opposite. We're going to do a bit of kumbaya, we're going to have a bunch of ideas, but then we're going to actually go do them. So that's the most important thing. Look around this room, you go to lots of meetups, you network, you meet a few people. The goal today and some of the exercises, you're going to really brainstorm and work closely with the people that are near you, and then hopefully over the next few months, 3 months, 6 months, you'll be part of the community and helping us actually achieve the goals that we set out. So does that sound like a great goal?
Yeah.
Everybody vested into making it happen?
Yeah.
All right, that's in blood, so everybody's in this room is like now accountable for that. And of course my computer locks up. So this is at a high level, I think we already went through the agenda. We have a few people who are going to kind of get up and speak and give us kind of a backdrop, a context, things to think about as we go into the brainstorm exercise. The brainstorming will be interesting. We're going to try a few things that I've done in small groups. I've never done in a group this big. So it'll be an experiment. I think it'll be awesome. If you go in with the intent that it's going to be awesome, it will be awesome. So you get in, you get out what you put in. So I think it'll be good. And then we'll have kind of an open discussion based upon what we brainstorm. So again, we're going to go into mode, we're going to brainstorm, we're going to come up with a whole bunch of ideas of how to completely take over the world, and then we're going to come out and say, okay, how do we actually go do that? And then we'll wrap up and actually come up with tangible things that we can go and do. So I wanted to first have Jamie come up from Sapling Learning. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Sapling Learning, I'm sure we'll give you a good overview. I actually saw them recently, they do some really great work. And I think they bring a really great perspective to this specific problem.
Thanks, Paul. So I just wanted to mention a couple of things that, from my perspective, I'm a biochemist. Most of the people from Sapling here have gone to graduate school or have masters or PhDs in their fields that work at Sapling. We probably have a pool of, must be almost north of 40 people that are that way. And what's interesting about Sapling is the foundation and early beginnings, but what I see and I notice when even talking with employees today is that while a lot of us are scientists, a lot of us have programmed, right? And so I noticed back there people were saying, learning programming is important because it applies to science, but science also applies to computer science. And there are a lot of scientists who learn to program because they want to achieve things in their scientific careers. So I think, the problem-solving disciplines are all wrapped around each other. And it's not necessarily that you get formal training in computer science to go on to learn to program, but in fact, anyone with strong problem-solving skills has a natural inclination for these things. The other thing I wanted to mention is that computer science in particular, and that's actually not a course that our company covers. We provide online homework and digital learning for high school and higher ed STEM disciplines. And computer science isn't one we currently tackle right now. But one of the things that's really interesting to me as a parent, and in talking with Matt earlier today, is that I'm a scientist. My son loves science. I know lots of kids who are interested in science, and my kid goes to a science and math magnet school, and they learn programming there. Now, there are a lot of places in Austin and around Texas where you can't learn programming, or it's they don't have very good programs. But despite my son's love of science, he doesn't come home and run science experiments for fun. He doesn't have an academic hobby of running science experiments. I kind of poke him along, and he might try to figure some things out. But the one thing that he and his friends universally will do is program, because they're interested in games, they're interested in Minecraft, they want to set up their own Minecraft server, and pretty soon they're writing JavaScripts and configuring PHP and writing PHP, and they're learning all of this themselves. And so, I think it's very important to have computer science education at the K-12 level, simply to give them just a tiny foundation with which they can launch that academic interest in learning how to program. And it doesn't even require much. It doesn't require much beyond Hello World, to be honest. They just need to know that, oh, actually I can do this. I wrote my first program, and they're off and running. And a lot of people that I see around here today, in the early days of Sapling, we were scientists, but we were programming and doing a lot of things to do that. But we didn't learn those in programming courses. We just picked up books and went to the web and tried to figure it out, and because we had an end goal in mind that could be achieved through programming. So, it's important for science careers, but it's important to develop problem solvers as well. The other thing I want to mention is that one of the things that that's important to get across is that we have a problem that we need to solve. And that is that we're hiring like mad and we can't find good people. So please go to our website and apply for jobs. So thank you.
Yeah, it's not that it's all about jobs, but if you're a developer, not the gaming. So I think there's a lot of good points there. That can be especially the concept that it's not about learning computer science to be a software engineer. Obviously, a lot of people do that today, but there's a lot of people who I know, and Jamie mentioned scientists at his organization. I know people who are epidemiologists, and they end up coding rudimentary ways sometimes, and you're like, why are you doing it that way? Because they're doing crazy things in Excel when you teach them things like, why don't you use R or lots of any tool but Excel for what you're doing. But the point is that
Gateway drug.
Yeah, it's a gateway drug, exactly right. So you can come from these other fields and you end up needing, or the ability to be able to program is a huge benefit. And I think that's a background that everybody could use. And being exposed to that in high school is a strong starting point, because then it doesn't feel as strange to you later on in your career when you're realizing you should or could use that. And on that note, I think we have a few people that we just want to have stand up and give their unique perspectives on why they think computer science education is important, what they're already doing. Specifically, the first time we have Jake from LASA, who's actually a CS teacher. And as a teacher, I think it's always great to hear why they do what they do, what they're doing, and why they feel it's important. So Jake, can you stand up? You can stand up here.
Yeah,
You can come up here.
stand up here.
You can jump up and down too.
I'll try. No, I'll stand still. So I teach computer science at the North Science Academy here in Austin. And I do a lot of different things. Like I think one thing that was really interesting there is, we have a lot of students that they take one class or two classes, and then the crazy stuff they do is outside of class. Like I had a student last year that had never taken something before he was a junior. And right now, as a senior year, he's writing a program to take my student lab submissions and auto-process them and then give me direct feedback. And that may sound simple when I describe it that way, but this is a process that would probably normally take a development team a couple months to figure out how to do it, how to implement it. And he's already, I would say, halfway done with it. Like he's figured out the big problems. Now he's just got to figure out the little ones. And the same student was one that came to me and he said, what I love about this is I have an idea. I can just go and do it. I can make it happen. And there's not many other academic disciplines that we teach at the high school level that allow students to do that. So I think that's really, really powerful. And a common theme that I've heard here that I recently is really snapped me up. I think I always knew it, but a lot of people right now are using the jobs as kind of the carrots, trying to lure people to do this. And I think that's the wrong carrot because our education system has never been about trying to meet a specific job demand. Like we're not going to necessarily steer our entire system based upon one thing. But what we do a lot of is we recognize that there are skills that are used in every discipline across the board, and we want to integrate those into our academic areas. And I think computer science is one of those, because again, we mentioned scientists, mathematicians. There's pretty much any discipline you're going into now, there is a place for computer science. If it's not already there, it will be there really, really soon. And so some current things that I'm doing now with this outside of school is advocacy at the state level, which if we truly want change to happen, it almost has to happen at the state level because that's how our education system is administered. So I've been working with SBOE, trying to do stuff with the legislature, working with TCEA, and we're slowly feel like we're moving in the right direction there finally, but that was kind of a long battle a couple weeks ago. And then also trying to network teachers inside of the Austin area, which has been hit or miss. But another thing that's really unique about computer science teachers is oftentimes you're the only teacher at that school that teaches that subject. And so it can be really hard to figure out how to do that. So that's what I got.
I'm curious, are you seeing propagation of computer science into other topics?
So we actually had a math teacher this year that proposed a course that would be more or less how to program solutions to these certain math problems. And it's not going to go on choice sheets for next year, but at least that seed is placed. And what I see, I don't see the teacher doing it, but I see the students doing it. Like I have a freshman this year who's in my AP class. He's wrote programs to solve algebra problems in his algebra class, solve Latin problems, and do stuff in his biology course. So again, the student is realizing the value of getting rid of these repetition tasks in his classes, and he's going to do something. I definitely love to anyone who wants to do internships.
Do you know that was in there?
Yeah.
Sorry, when you mentioned that, it occurred to me that. So did everybody vote on the dot board? No. You can come back up. There's some stickers up front. You can add your vote to it. When Jake mentioned the part about it's not about the jobs, that was actually one of the options on here. I was actually curious to see what people would vote. And if so for those of you who didn't see it, can't see this from all the way in the back, a few visions like mine. So the question is, why do you believe exposing students to CS is important? The first one is all students should have some coding ability. Number two is for the problem-solving skills they inherently learn, the value of that. The skills learned apply across STEM subjects, or it exposes them to how technology works, and the last one is it can help them in their future careers. So just in the room, right, this isn't about any one person's vote. That's why this kind of exercise is interesting, just to see where do people lean in. And I think, the statistically obvious answer that we can extrapolate to the rest of Austin and Texas and actually the world is it's about the problem-solving skills they can learn in their future careers. So we cannot publish this in a paper. This is science at its best already. Next, we wanted to have Luke, who's actually a student at one of the high schools here in Austin. We found Luke semi-randomly through a hackathon he organized, and we learned about some of the other things he's doing. I thought it'd be great to hear from him as a student in high school, trying to promote computer science and computer science.
Yeah, so I'm Luke. I'm a sophomore at Austin High here in town. And a little bit of background on how I got into technology. In middle school, I had a couple of high schoolers sort of introduced me to coding and gave me the fundamentals, and I sort of took it from there. And that's a pattern I've seen with a lot of other teenage developers I know. A lot of them are either self-taught or were mentored by very close friends. So Wassa has a really great computer science program. Austin High has no computer science. And the majority of high schools don't. But whenever I talk to people about it, and I talk to my friends, they're all interested. They know that they can build really cool things with code. They know that they can solve really interesting problems and script their homework and cheat a little bit on a few assignments and do all that with code. But they don't know where to get started, and they don't know how to get from zero knowledge to being able to do those things. And so I've been trying to help kind of my classmates get into it. And so I organized Code Day Austin. And Code Days are 24-hour hackathons for high school and college students. But instead of more standard hackathons, are aimed at people that are already pretty solid programmers that can build something with their prior knowledge in that time slot. Code Day was kind of aimed at more of the beginner level. And so we had some kids that had never written a line of code before come in and make really interesting games. And that was really cool to watch. And now I'm starting a hack club at Austin High, which is a pilot program that a friend and programmer in Los Angeles is developing to make standard models for students starting clubs to teach programming at their schools. And so our goal is to take people from zero programming knowledge to pretty proficient Java hackers. That's what I'm doing.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Are you hacking bitcoins to fund these?
No, I am not. A lot of my friends are, though. That's how some of them have gotten more into tech.
What about Dogecoin?
We'll just get into that one, too.
Were you the one that brought down Mount Gox last night?
Yes.
Nice work.
And I will say, like, my students went to the hack day and they loved it. They thought it was awesome. They really thought it was amazing. So, and you're organizing the second one, so let's get the word out for the campus. It's in May, right?
Yes.
Is that open
Code Day will be
to What's it called again?
Code Day, and the website is codeday.org.
Do you need mentors, like programmers in Austin to mentor?
That would be very helpful.
Yeah, the really interesting thing, so Siggy and I visited, so it was awesome just to see the projects they were working on. I mean, these weren't, they all, it was interesting because they all started on a project that was something they could accomplish that weekend, but it was also tangibly a pretty decent sized project. There were people who had been coding, who were in like Chase classes and been doing it for a year or two. But the interesting thing about Code Day was that they were bringing in people who had not coded, had zero experience, and they start with it was like 1 or 2 hour session, getting them ramped up, so that it's a very inclusive community for students. And I know that I think for anybody that has students that'd be interested, and even haven't taken a class, Code Day is an awesome way for them to get in and be around other students that are doing that.
And I've found technology at large to be extremely welcoming to younger programmers. I've never had code rejected because I'm 16. If it's good code, it's good code.
If you're 17, you can get into Target.
It's interesting that they're filling in a void where there's obviously, I mean, it just sticks out like a sore thumb. They're having to fill in, the grassroots effort is coming because they're not getting it where they ought to be getting.
Right. And that's a really key point, something that we'll go more into. And I think these are the kinds of things that want people kind of get in their heads as once the brainstorming session.
You know, the assumption is that formal organizations can move this on. It'll be long and slow.
Oh yeah, I get that.
Healthcare and education is just really, really slow. We're right on the cusp of a new era. I mean, GitHub University is here, and people are starting to use it. Do any of your high school friends use GitHub? Full code on?
I use GitHub.
It's really popular with kids.
Oh, come on, it's popular with old people.
Yeah, every open source project uses GitHub, so.
Those of us that are young get heartless. I finally wanted to, we had John from Appalicious. Again, he provides an industry perspective on the problem.
And I'll step up here so y'all don't hurt your necks looking around. So this is my first time ever coming to any sort of a meeting like this, so I've been a little bit prepped, but obviously I was thinking it was going to be full of students and parents basically begging to somehow get technology pushed into their school. So I want to know, just out of curiosity, how many of you are teachers? Okay, and how many of you, awesome, by the way, and how many of you are students? Just one. Okay, who are the rest? Who are the rest of you guys? What are you doing here? Well, I'm from Appalachia. I was invited by the University of Texas because we worked with them closely on a project. We develop apps specifically for planning and diet, and I asked, what do you actually want me to speak about to a group like this? Because I mean, I think that what we do may be something that you're looking to be teaching or pushing into the school system, and I really don't know what the education system is like right now. So my best guess from what he just said is that you really don't have technology as a class, and I'm shocked, to be quite honest with you. I mean, if you think of, let's just take France, for example, and this is way far off. What is it? 302 million people live in France. So what is that, the population? What percentage of the population is that out of the world? It's very, very small, right? What am I getting at? They teach French in school. Really? I took French. I majored in French. I have a degree in French. What did it do for me? Nothing. Zero. Nothing. Zero, 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 zero. Except for I got a job at the United Nations for 10 years and worked as head of technology. Yeah, it kind of like helped me a little bit get into, but I had to go and get a degree in technology to actually do what I wanted to do. And I've got a lot of friends who turn to me and they say, like, how did you get to where you are? And I said, well, it was no help from the school system, I can tell you. No help from anyone, really. It was a realization that what's happening right now is that there are, and this is, you're gonna hate me, jobs. I'm sorry, but that's what we're here. We're here to work and survive. And no job, no money, no survival. That's what it is. Why you go to school? You get an education, you go out to do what? You get a job. That's the point. So go to monster.com. Now, when I was going to school, did they have monster.com? No, they didn't have monster.com. They didn't even have the internet when I went to school. So I had no idea what I was gonna do, and that's why I took French. But if you go to monsterjobs.com right now, and you look up, let's say, lawyers, there are 549 jobs for lawyers. If you look up, let's say, bus driver, there are 295 jobs. If you look up doctor, there are 500 and something jobs. I actually wrote this down, so let's make sure that I'm getting it right. Because I wanted to get my numbers right here. You look up chef, 395 jobs. You look up electrician, 695. So more electricians over lawyers, which is good. App developers in the thousands. Software engineers in the thousands. Web developers in the thousands. Thousands. What am I trying to tell you? It's so simple. Like, really? I don't even know, like, I'm shocked if this is not in the education system today. I'm shocked. I'm really, like, that's ridiculous. It just makes no sense. But then again, most things don't make sense. So what I tell my friends is I say, what is your objective? What is your major in school? Go to monsterjobs.com. Go and look and see what job there is for what you want to do. And when they come back to me and they say, well, there really isn't much, I'm like, okay, well, why are you going to school? Are you going to school because you want to survive after? And if the answer is yes, then maybe you should look for a job specific to what it is that you're studying. And with those statistics, thousands are in technology. Why? I mean, I think it's quite clear why. Because that's what we're doing. I mean, from what I personally do to make money, I make apps, which is really a cool thing. And the reason why is because if you look back 5 years ago, when someone said, oh, I'm a software engineer, or I make software, you're thinking, okay, you're Microsoft, you're Apple, you're some like big company, makes this massive program, and Adobe, and people go and buy this, and that's how you earn your, that's what you would think. But it's such an opportunity right now to make applications which are just small. Like, I'm gonna call them small because obviously they can be big, but you can make one that's small. They can change the world. I mean, you really can. Angry Bird. I mean, that's a game. But I mean, there are tons. And I think that there is such an opportunity, and especially I see it overseas. Most of the people with whom we work are overseas because one, there aren't so many people here, and two, they're very expensive. Those are the two things. So I could get into a lot of things about, you know, what the government should do to subsidize and help small businesses pay out local programmers. I mean, that would be just so awesome if I say, okay, it cost me $2,000 to get the same amount of code from the Ukraine, and it's $4,000 here, then give me a $2,000 tax write-off and I'll hire locally. I mean, there are all kinds of things that I would suggest. But I think that, you know, that first would instigate the fact that we need the programmers here. We need people who are educated in technology, who can come to the table with this sort of experience that, that personally I'm looking for, and I know thousands of people are looking for. So, like I said, you go and you look to see what jobs are out there. And I think that there are thousands of jobs, more than lawyers, more than doctors. Go look it up. More than lawyers, more than doctors, more than all those educated. Your parents said, oh, you should be an astronaut. Oh, well, NASA's closed down. But I mean, you know, you should be this, you should be that, you should be this, you should be that. And I say, what are you talking about? Like, go and see what's out there before you start saying what you should be, because maybe that will help you make a decision. And I think that obviously technology is super important. It's definitely what's kept me going. It's the coolest thing. I mean, to make an application, even if it's small, that, is your name Jake?
Yeah.
Okay, no, I'm sorry, not.
Oh, Luke.
Luke? Is it Luke? So you've made an application, have you seen the effect of it?
Yeah.
What is the effect?
I'm a web developer for a nonprofit.
Okay, and so what is the effect when you make something? What happens? I mean, because whether it's small or big, what is the result of it?
You reach people and you change an organization of people.
That's like the coolest thing. Like, I mean, what did my French degree do for me? Nothing. It didn't change anything. Nothing. I speak beautiful French. Beautiful.
You can order a New York restaurant.
I could, and I do. But it doesn't help what I do now, and I don't think that it helps what we, as let's say the US, we're doing right now. And maybe what they need to do is realize that programming is a language. Take French out, put programming in. That's it. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Sean.
Yep.
So if your students are majoring in French, make sure that you get them switched to computer science.
There was a recent fMRI study, and it turns out people who read code, they do part of their question was, is it processed as a language or is it processed as mathematics? Turns out, at least when you're reading code, it is in fact dominantly processed by the language centers in the brain.
I agree 100%.
It now counts as a foreign language credit.
And it should.
Yeah, there are guys, there are people who push it and get a foreign language.
I'd take it over Spanish.
Which I think is kind of
And there are programmers that are more
Oh, God. I don't want anything about Earl.
Sorry.
Yeah, I think as an educator, retired educator, there are a lot of problems that crop up, and some of it is terminology. You know, you talk about computer science and you talk about technology. If you discuss those two topics with administrators in the school district, they have a different interpretation of those words.
Yeah, actually,
There's a difference between their perception of teaching a student how to use a software package and teaching a student how to write a software package for someone else to use.
yeah, I'm gonna stop you.
They
I'm
don't get that.
gonna stop you because I think you're going into discussions that I want you to use for brainstorming. So with that, I'm gonna briefly give you. Yeah, is it?
Yeah, I have a clarifying question that
Okay.
I think is going to be relevant to this. It's for Jake. So when I initially came here tonight, one of the things I was thinking about was that whole like SBOE thing and like how do we change things on the state level. And I know that part of my brainstorming is going to want to be about focused on that. And so what I wanted to know from you is, I mean, you mentioned you're doing some work there, but can you just say a little bit more about what that work is and what goals have been achieved and what goals still need to be achieved?
Yeah, so again, I'm probably going to go against the Appalicious guys thing, but one thing that did happen is we just got computer science to count as a foreign language in Texas, and I'm actually not in favor of that. I think once you start doing like this study says, trying to analyze a foreign language and computer science strictly against their keys as a language, then you actually strip away what is most important about both disciplines. And so what happened was there was one teacher in Houston who saw this as an opportunity, took it, and now we have it, when in reality what we should be working towards is getting computer science as a requirement instead of wasting time on this. So that's one thing, and it's there, and one thing that's problematic there is Texas has 2 strands that they can code computer science courses under. One of them is called Technology Application Strand, the other one is CTE. Well, the CTE courses are funded, so a lot of computer science teachers use those. This new foreign language requirement uses the Tech Apps courses, but not the CTE. So some schools are having to choose between getting foreign language credit or getting funding for the courses.
Okay.
And another big one is the endorsements. There's still some mess with the endorsements, like how those come together and work with these 2 separate strands of courses. So what would really be nice, and what I'm going to try to continue working towards, is aligning these standards into one set under CTE. And then that would make it easier to kind of support the courses moving forward as a set of courses.
So has there not been any discussion?
Actually, I'm gonna pause it here because I think
Okay, sorry.
use those thoughts onto your brainstorming here in a second, and then we'll bring those back up to the board. So I promise you we'll come back to it.
I just want to provide one thing that's an expansion on what you were saying, is that in terms of jobs, I mean, as an employer, even for a sales guy, if I have a sales guy in front of me and all things being equal, one has a problem-solving degree and the other one has a French degree, no offense, I'm going to hire the one that's has a problem-solving degree simply because they're better problem solvers. End of the story, you know. So when, you know, in a startup, you know, if there's a problem at your company, you want everyone to run towards it, not away from it. And I think it's important to have as many problem solvers in your company, no matter what their actual role.
So,
What degree is in problem solving, by the way? Is there one? Is there a degree in problem solving?
Math.
As I say, it's called math.
So mathematician over a French speaker.
It's computational printing.
all right. So for the brainstorm, how many of you guys ever done brainwriting? 1, 2. How many of you have heard of brainwriting?
Sounds painful.
So what we're gonna do is we're gonna cut your head off and then write on the back of your head. No. All right. So it's actually, so the purpose of brainwriting versus standard brainstorming is typically when you brainstorm in a group, there end up being a small number of speakers and a lot of people who don't speak up and voice their opinions. So the goal of brainwriting is it's sort of a quiet mode for a little bit. I want you guys, you break up into groups of 3 or 5, your tables are probably right. So you can each, if you have paper, I have a ton of paper, everybody starts with a sheet of paper and write down what you think these problems, right? Well, I'll give you the prompt in a second, but basically it's gonna be the problems that we need to solve to get to where you think we need to be. So there's 2 ways to do this, right? I can give you a utopian picture of where I think you need to be. And my wife says I always think I'm right, and I say, no, it's just that I'm always right, but I'm not gonna do that anyways. Instead, it's think about what you think the world should be and where we should go, and write down the problems that you think we need to solve in order to get there. And what's gonna happen, so you start writing things down, I'll call like pass, so you pass around to the next person to your left. And the idea is that you get to now look at what the person to your left was thinking, and that should hopefully give you more ideas. And at the end of that, you'll collected a bunch of ideas. Yep.
Can we use our phones?
If you want to pass your phone across to people. But if you get Sean's phone, you can take a look at his pictures too. Okay.
Is it one sheet per group?
One sheet per person.
One sheet per person.
Yeah.
It's like round robin.
By the way,
That's what they call it in school.
while he's passing stuff out, we have to grab there's more sandwiches and more drinks. It's gonna take a time to soon. So, otherwise,
We just lost somebody.
Yes, you may jump. Thank you.
Yeah, but let people grab meetings. Otherwise, we're like 30 minutes.
The biggest thing that I like is I can do like wide angle which I really want to get. It's Wi-Fi enabled, so I can actually like so there's a little bit of
How are you? Good. I got lost. I said to go to the email last night. I go saying I'm not coming.
Yeah.
And then I see.
Okay, guys, if you haven't already, make sure you get into your groups of 3 to 5. 3 to 5, yeah. Get into your groups and get ready. All walk it through. Yeah. Give me an email. Dropping the red ball every place on the This is cool. Are you guys on like 5 minutes? Yeah.
And then definitely on the days. All right, everybody. Is everybody in the groups? Ready? Is everybody? Yeah, I'm gonna. So this is how it's gonna go. Does everybody understand the process of the exercise?
Yeah.
So you're gonna write. I will. Not really. All right.
We're just talking about it.
Okay. So the prompt, like I said, is think about where you want or what you think CS education should look like. Hopefully, you came here because you don't think it should look like what it does today, but you want changes that you want to see happen. So right now, when you think of the key blocks, what needs to change basically, and to get where we want to be. So write down whatever comes to you. Don't hesitate and try and come up with beautiful ideas. Just write it down. This is brainstorming. So, and I'm going to call time, like in 30 seconds, then you'll pass it to the person. To your,
Oh, so it's one person writes and then passes the paper down.
Right. You guys want more time? We can do it. All right, we'll do a minute. I'll call time in a minute.
Do we all write it down at the same time?
Yes. Yeah, this is parallel here.
Okay.
Multi-threaded.
All right.
Is everybody ready?
I don't know, is it cool that different people might have different opinions on what is successful or what
Yeah.
is success?
That's the purpose of it. So everybody, I expect that everybody's gonna have a different vision. So keep your vision in mind.
One piece of paper per group?
One per person in the group. Because you're gonna switch it around
Per group.
so that the next person starts writing based upon the ideas that you pass and so on, right? And it is the purpose is that you probably all have slightly different visions, but you're gonna start feeding off of each other as you rotate the paper around. So is everybody ready? All right, go. Right, start writing. Start writing your ideas based upon the prompt, right?
When he says switch
Okay. So go ahead and take your sheet of paper, give it to the person on your left. If you're at the end of the line, pass it all the way down to the person around. So we.
He gave me this and I wrote down my comments, so this is the sheet in the
So read what the person before you. So take a second to read what the person before you wrote. Internalize that and
I have my own
I don't know. Something we like. I have a little check mark. I was like, I agree.
We don't understand the system. We have one sheet of paper on which all four of us write, is that right?
4 sheets of paper.
Oh.
So it's fine, you can just start from, if you have a blank sheet, just start with whatever. Does that make sense?
So then you add, why do you say add to? You add to.
So the second time around, you'll add to whatever the person wrote before you wrote. So you can read what they wrote and then start extending based upon that.
Yeah. I just wrote a slightly different voice.
Can you be clear on what you want us to do? Because it sounds like I should just write the things around my list that aren't on this list, but I'm guessing that's not.
Yeah. Hopefully, by reading what the person before you wrote, you're getting new ideas.
You're responding to what they wrote.
Yeah.
Like you're building on what they've written.
Thank you.
Doesn't have to.
You could
Doesn't have to.
Is there an app for this?
I'm working on it, but I can get the bug on time. You pass again?
Yes. No, that's my stuff, so.
Writing on my deed.
I'm sorry.
I like your purple shirt.
It's in your life. I started doing the same thing.
I
Okay, last pass. And then whenever you're kind of at a stopping point, you go ahead and stop writing, and then I'll give you the next part of the exercise.
So what are we doing now?
So once you're done writing, what you do is get with your groups. You guys at this point have a few pages of a ton of ideas and thoughts. If you don't have some Post-its, or if you need more Post-its, come get them from me. The goal now is to extract out of 4 pages of writing some key themes. So the reason I give you Post-its is so you can't write a book on a Post-it. Do not try to write a book on a Post-it. There should be a few words on the Post-it, a picture if you want to, whatever. But summarize, whatever you want, that should be easy for somebody else to see. So if the instance is we need to,
Oh, sorry. I was just going to ask, are these like, are we looking for like the biggest problem that we've identified?
or theme, problem themes.
Problem or theme, like the most prevalent or prevalent, like.
What you guys think is a group you want to share out.
Okay.
So I'm not going to give you the criteria of like, but yeah, what do you think you want to share out? Write those on the Post-it notes. Yep.
Would you define what you mean by us?
Us as a, yeah, it's, it was vague on purpose and maybe it was too vague. But I would say us as, let's keep it to Austin and Central Texas community. The people in this room and our direct, intermediate impact points. Does that make sense? So not us as in, humankind or something like that. So yeah, see if you can capture a few ideas onto your Post-its. If you need more Post-its, let me know. You can use multiple Post-its, yeah. Okay, one Post-it should be one idea.
Gets
into that. Falls into that word. Yeah, do. I mean, I'm more than happy to just like humble, trying to get where in a larger scale can do some of the things.
Why do you say that? I mean, you haven't read it. You have no
I didn't.
Yeah, I never saw the concept.
Here's why. Somebody wrote it needs to be when you're right, and then here's what I have.
That's just part of the way you did this. So we're talking about kids, it's not about
they're working on a project.
the one that people voted for these topics. Right now we're just talking about that would be a thing. Quiet. All right, if you guys can summarize and finish up your notes in the next 60 seconds.
So those are like our
Well, although this time, so if you got language to why.
What we're gonna do is put them on the board and so they're very active. Is everybody running? You guys all stop for
Wasting time in class is solving problems again. One, you're
One good point. Everybody, I don't talk really loud, so you're gonna have to. Do not throw your shoes, by the way. It'd be cool to complete. I want to collect them and then post them up on someplace social.
Blog.
Yeah, on the to the blog.
By the way, it says test post. It isn't a test post. I don't know why I did that. It's okay.
All right, so this is what we do with the post-its. Somebody from each group will be delegate. They'll come up to the board. You guys can say, what the ideas were, and put them on the board. Now, the first team will have it the easiest because they just get to put the ideas on the board. Subsequent teams, when you go up there, if you have an idea that's close to something that's already there, clump it together. So the idea is reorganize the post-its as you go, and ideally we'll get nicely organized clustered themes by the end of it. Does that make sense? Yes, no, maybe so. All right, Sean?
Okay, so our group had two main ideas. One, we just said that it's really tough to implement computer science. The fact that somebody who's computer science literate or has that as a background can make way more money in the private sector than they can in the public sector. So that's like huge issue number one. The other one is a lack of communication between the industry and the schools. And so we were saying that we need a better public-private partnership to help those two talk.
We had those two as well, and a couple more. So there is very little, those of you who are educators know that a big push is getting writing across the curriculum. So writing in math, writing in science, whatever. So there's very little getting students to use technology across the curriculum, and not just reading on a web page, but making stuff with technology. So putting that across core courses. There's a big equity issue around, typically the students that are piped into computer science, as we all know, mostly males, mostly white. And that's an issue for kids that come from backgrounds that don't have these sort of careers with their families or the people around them. So we see a lot of that. There's also not currently any technology required in Austin ISD to graduate. And that's the case in a lot of other schools. And there's, again, a really low pipeline of teachers that both can and will teach computer science.
If you have a duplicate, just put it on top of the same issue.
Yeah.
That opened.
Okay. Projects. Where's your busiest day?
Oh.
Yeah, it's more of it.
So from our group, we had a couple themes, and it goes along with what she just said in terms of the equity issue. We call it opportunity and encouragement. So there's one part being the opportunity available to students, but also encouragement for specific populations. One that was brought up was for female students, how to make it more attractive as programming, how to make programming more attractive to them to want to participate in class. So that one goes here. I think there was a question about what does CS education mean, and that was certainly a theme. Programming can be a lot of things. You can talk all day about one specific topic and not even reach the breadth of what CS is. So that's when you talk about programming, you have to talk about what that means. I think there's a consensus probably that it doesn't mean Photoshop. And I don't know if that's.
Yeah, I don't think that.
And then, how do you fit CS into a curriculum that's already full? Mandatory, make it mandatory. If you make it mandatory, that seems like
a difficult bridge to cross, and I know some good folks are trying to work with the legislature to do that, but at the same time, if it's already full, how do you fit it in? So that, I don't know.
Like getting it across.
It's tough to implement CS. There's no pipeline of educators that will teach. I don't know if it's how to fit it in.
What are the two?
This is a connection between
teachers and students. This is more technology integrated in other core subjects.
Yeah, I think it's positive about it. How do you fit it into everything else? Next group, volunteers.
So we talked about breaking the silo between computer science and core subject areas, but more specifically, computer science is on the career and tech ed track, which is a separate thing from science or math, but also you don't get weighted GPAs for those classes. So if you're college bound, you'd rather take an AP course, an IB course, or Photoshop because it's offered by ACC than to take an in-school computer science class. So
they can be weighted.
They can, but most of them, they're not. They're just, a 4.0, which, sounds great to us, but if it's not a 5.0, then a lot of college-bound students aren't going to take it, especially if you're trying to be on the top 10%. So breaking the silo of that, I think somebody said making it in.
Is this going with this bucket?
Core subjects. Okay. Then industry participation, we had a conversation about it. Just encouraging people to be involved as mentors or like a couple hours a week rather than trying to get them involved all the time, or leading a project or sharing with a project or providing advice during some sort of project. So where was industry? This one? This is okay. Then teacher preparation. I think that's self-explanatory. Okay. There's a lot of competition in that space. You can't just host a summer training and expect everyone to show up. In our experience, I'm the director of the STEM Council at Steel Point Alliance. So in our experience, you need to pay teachers to show up at stuff at this point. So the additional cost of preparing teachers and then supporting them through the year. It can't just be a summer training and you're done. It's got to be like every month there's like a webinar or a phone call or a hangout or something to keep them going. And then resources, we just lump them all together. So some schools have one-to-one iPad initiatives and therefore don't have computers for students to do those things. Software, if you decide you want to do something with ActionScript or JavaScript, you're going to need some additional stuff. Curricula, like it would be nice if all of them looked the same in some way, like there was a standard, and then money.
I think it's a new one.
So we had a lot of the same things. I think that a big one comes back to the teacher training, and so I'm a principal, and it's nearly impossible to hire a computer science teacher. Like you can look and look and look and look, and nobody even comes in for an interview. So you either like inherit like a wonderful person like Jake, or you're trying to figure out, get someone who kind of has some knowledge to, can you teach this course? And that's how I snuck it into my last school. And we had some guy who was like an electronics guy who knows not much, but I got convinced, and he had the right certification, so I convinced him to take on the course. And it's hard. And then the courses that are offered as well are pretty lame. And so like what makes a technology course in Texas is Adobe. And so like creating websites with Dreamweaver or using Flash, it's all like Adobe products, like that's the class, that's your computer class, or it's AP Computer Science, which is fine, but it just teaches to a test. There's no creativity involved. And personally, I don't know a lot about computer science, but I would think as someone who's not technically knowledgeable, like the doing stuff is way better than just the hearing about it stuff. Which gets to the second part, which is focused on real world application. And we had I don't know if that's on here at all, but we had an interesting and passionate conversation about what that means, and real to who. And is it real to like the pathways and the job world and things like that? Personally, I think kids can give a crap about that, and they're more interested in things like games. And I was telling him I had an interesting conversation with a guy who's a programmer now, and he said that's how I got into programming, was I wanted to make video games. And he's like, well, when I actually started taking courses in college, I knew that's not what I wanted to do, and he's doing something else in the business world. But it's the engagement point, it's that interest point to me. But the other point was, we have to make it real for them and give them that pathway into that world. And so I don't know where that is on here. Selling and connecting to what kids care about. Okay, so that sort of a thing. I think it's all about creativity and making stuff and doing stuff. That's what kids are into. I have a 5th grader that's him and his buddies, that's all they do is Minecraft, and they do make their own servers, and he gets into the mods and doing all this stuff, and it's gotten him interested. I got him interested in doing Scratch and things like that, and so it's like, wow, as soon as I tell him it's like related to something in school, he's gonna stop doing it, and so I don't want to. There's a really good comment a lot about the structures, the political structures, the politicians and the standards. There's a couple of teachers in the group, and they were really, teachers under so much pressure to cover this stuff. And even as a principal, I can never convince my teachers, listen, it's not about that. In fact, there was this great math teacher at LASA that I tried to, she was so dedicated to having every kid, she wouldn't even let their kids use calculators. Everything had to be on pencil and paper. I said, well, what about having a conversation about how the calculator made that computation? Wouldn't that be a really cool conversation to have and use the calculator, since that's what they're going to use in the real world anyway? But she was like, no, they must learn it this way. And, it's a back and forth, but I think the teachers are under this tremendous pressure to do this state mandated stuff. And I don't think it's the standards that's the problem personally. I think it's how we use them. They're used as a weapon and not a tool. And that's, I think, the biggest problem. And so I don't know that we have anything about standards either. And then we also said connections between industry and academia and strengthening those ties. And that's what this group is about. And I'm glad to see more teachers here, and teachers, tell your teacher friends to come to this, because that's our biggest problem, is getting more educators. Developers, great, thank you so much for being here. Talk to more teachers. Talk to more teachers and get teachers to be a part of this conversation, because that's why these things aren't coming into schools, because people don't really understand. People at my level, I'm dying for another administrator to show up to one of these things. And me not to be the only one ever here, because I think it's so important. And there's the people making the decisions, and the people above me even making the purchasing decisions. And that's who you all need to be connecting with and helping to understand why this stuff is important to have in schools. It's all good and fine that we're having this conversation, but until the decision makers are doing that, which is why I love that kid Luke who left, because it's the ground up thing, that grassroots piece, and when people demand it, it's going to happen. So.
By the way, for those of you who are here for the first time tonight, normally we have beer, and I think that's a great incentive. But because we were anticipating having more students, so I wanted to make sure we didn't have alcohol around kids.
And that's actually why I don't encourage my students to go to very many tech meetups in town, because they're so centric. So I feel like I need to advertise to the parents and have the parents take their kids, this is really bad. So one of our big ones is starting earlier. Again, to get this expectation of students that we said late elementary would probably be a good time to start. So, get them on this path of understanding what it is all the way up, because oftentimes by the time you get to high school, they've already got preconceived either notions about what computer science is that's often wrong, hopefully wrong, and then they often don't have any idea what it is by that point either, and already locked into some other path. And so by getting it in earlier, that would expose them more. And then similar to other people were the state standards. And I think Scott's right. I think you can use them as a tool, and it all depends on how they're being used. The biggest problem for state standards with computer science right now is there's these 2 separate tracks that at schools like mine, we use both of them in different ways. And so to teach computer science, I have to have 3 separate certifications to teach the courses that I teach. And so that gets to be a real pain. So it'd be nice to kind of align them a little bit more. Even if there's 2 standards, at least make sure they're similar. That way we can support them as a group of teachers. And then one that has been up here, I think, before is there's this big problem, especially, again, nothing intended, Scott, but administrators, if they see a computer in the classroom, they think, oh, that kid's learning whatever X. And to them, that is exactly the same thing as what goes on in my classroom. So they see no different between someone learning how to do Photoshop and someone learning how to write a computer program, which are very different. So. Yes.
I think the first one goes into.
Yeah.
No, that's
That's new. Okay. And the standards is somewhere.
Right in front.
Here we go.
I just like that it says the hurdle is state of Texas. Just like that. Throw the whole state of the bus.
I think we had a number of the same kind of themes, little tangents there. So I think one was mentoring, and that's everything from kind of just the cross-pollination of students to students, students to teachers, students to professionals, professionals to teachers, and so forth. And like as Luke was saying, I'm sure just the sense of like the community as well there, right? Of having something where students are able to help themselves or with other students, so they kind of feel more comfortable than necessarily going all the way to teachers and so forth, if they're just doing something on their own as opposed to pure coursework. I think the other one was this idea of CS or programming outside of pure programming, right? So that idea of problem solving for other purposes, other reasons. I mean, I still remember, this guy Luke comment about being able to kind of get out of doing a little homework as quick, doing things more efficiently. And when I was in high school, I remember being able to use a graphing calculator and program it to figure out my quadratic equation, so I never had to do that again. And it was great because I never had to do that again. And that was a very applicable to me problem right then and there, as opposed to the idea of having a job or something at that time. I think another one we kind of had was just this idea of changing the rewards from being pure in the sense of grades, but this idea of failure is not a bad thing. And a lot of times when you write code, I don't know of anyone I've ever come across that's written code that's got it right the first time. So it just doesn't work. So that idea there that, and failure is not a bad thing to learn either, right? And that it gives you that opportunity there. How do you build that into a curriculum, or how do you expose that with something that you want, have a good specific about, but just kind of that sense. And then kind of the motivation, so that kind of like the relevance to students and so forth.
You just come when they can't give you more political contributions.
Did it great? Oh wow.
Don't worry, I organized them. I did a sorting algorithm, quick sort. One was, and this has been said before, but partnership with the business community, they're relatively few and far between there. So I'll just put these up as we go. Where's
top left? Or sorry, second one.
Yeah. This guy? Yeah. A few centralized places to learn locally. Again, 7% of Texas schools actually teach the stuff. If that's not going to be in schools, after school programs, where are those? Where are these opportunities? Like Luke talked about his opportunities. So I know that was mentioned too. More like community kind of.
Or standardization.
Was it going to research?
Just blame Texas.
Well, no, that's community, right? Like, where in Austin are we going to do this?
I don't know if there is a community one.
I don't know any DIY stuff.
I'll put it here, and if we see it, we can merge it. And then we're not really taking advantage of both online resources and what's working in other countries. I'm not sure what models specifically the group was thinking about with other countries and what they're doing, but let's look at not just locally, but let's look globally at what's working and see if it can apply locally.
That's a new one.
Okay.
So just to add to that, one of the things we've talked about is 7% Texas is working, right? But there could be other states here that have a better computer science teaching model. Can we leverage that? There are other countries like what come from India. And money is the issue everywhere when it comes to education, but they find a way to do this. What can be leveraged instead of trying to reinvent the wheel? That's what.
Did you want?
In England, they have a system where public school teachers have a link up with the programmers in the industry and have them come to their classroom and teach for free. So this is a huge program.
So yeah, other models to explore for sure. And then there was this kind of block of ones, which is, let's see if I can summarize. A one-size-fits-all program, if people are striving for that, that might not be the answer, that might be at cross purposes. Idea of connecting across disciplines, is that a good or a bad thing? We don't know yet. And then computational thinking may not be easy to learn or to teach. And there was a bit of a debate about that, but that was part of the, like, this is tough and we don't really know the answers. Like, we can't really decide a path until we've discovered a little bit more about this. So yeah, probably curriculum, research, questions. Or in between these two, what does CS education mean? And then code looks like gibberish. Why don't we just make it look like a fun and exciting place to explore? Because it seems like that's what that's what it was for Luke and the people who introduced him to it. And where's our attention on making it something fun, something really enjoyable, and something that harnesses curiosity? So overcoming the syntax barrier.
It has changed a lot now with Scratch and Lego Mindstorms, things like that.
You want to throw it somewhere else?
I'll find it later. Okay. If people find that, was that a good exercise? You think they get thoughts out there? Like I said, I've never done it this scale before, so I didn't realize it took a lot more time than I expected it to. So we're actually well over the time we were supposed to do. So I'm gonna have to, we did that. So the goal is actually to break back out and think about how some of these key themes, we might solve them, but we will punt on that for now. What do people want to do? What I can do is put up a link where you can all sign up, we can create a group, keep the discussion going that way. Or we can have eat more into the networking time for a little bit and just talk about.
How about through the EdTech Austin link that already exists?
We could do that. I was thinking though, it might be good to just have 5 minutes to brainstorm some solutions, and then maybe we can share out.
Yeah.
I think it'd be smart if we, in our groups, we talk about what we would want to do as a group. What do we propose Austin do? Like, I think we should come up. I don't think you're going to get a gathering like this, fighting for CS in education, like in a long time. So
I agree. That's why. But I was like, okay. Do I schedule or do I?
Talk about what do we want to propose? What are the next steps?
All right, let's do that. I agree with +1 to the guy. Sorry, what's his name?
Garrett.
What?
Garrett.
Yeah. Let's do what Garrett says. So break back into your groups and come out with one or the most 2 things we think we should actually go do. Does that make sense?
You should like summarize these so that we can see them from where we are.
Why don't we're talking, why don't you use the marker?
Yeah, draw like some bubbles and then like the idea.
You have homework for them.
Come on, I see that.
Yeah, maybe let's
circle in that.
I'm curious.
if you don't mind,
A little bit of
I compared to whether they came from India or China or
next time we get
Well, no. Well, I don't know something here, but I was thinking like, whoever wants to share like a practice like maybe we should just do that. Maybe like they all go in there and share their views on it.
Oh yeah, you know what to do.
Yeah, there's
I don't think just
Hopefully everybody has a solution.
We've solved it.
We've solved it. Somebody here has a silver bullet, and then we're just going to get. All right. So, guys, everybody.
Just keep talking. Just keep talking.
All right. So.
Teacher, right? This is what you're supposed to do. I'll take the training, right?
Yeah, we got a little classroom here.
Just talking.
See, okay, it still works. All right. Okay, so we're gonna hopefully at this point you guys have had some solutions you can share back to the group. We can write them on the board.
Yep.
All right.
And I do want to point out before we go on, we have a Facebook group already for EdTech Austin. It's not the Facebook page, it's a group that anybody can join. I put the link up there and I also tweeted it out. So if you want to join it, you can continue the conversation on there. We'll post some of the ideas on there, or hopefully all of the ideas on there, so we can kind of continue the conversation.
Okay, so we came up with 2 ideas. One of the ideas are to come up with a startup weekend for kids. So this way, how many of you are familiar with what a startup weekend is? Okay, for those who don't, kids would come together. This is how it works right now for any startup weekend. Kids would come together and there would be there would be students that would come up that would pitch their ideas to other students. And then they break up into groups, and then they go and they build whatever they were thinking over that weekend. And obviously there would be mentors there and everything. And at the end of the weekend, they actually pitch the final idea and show everybody in the audience what they've done, including parents, including teachers, including all the other people who would go, wow, that could be really done in a weekend, and get a lot of excitement around that. The prizes could be scholarships for the kids, and then I think it would also just be that idea that we're now glamorizing what could be done with coding and programming, and they would just like the recognition for that. Because you could see how Luke was about how excited he was to see, and there are things that can be easily built over a weekend.
And I think, one thing to just bring up, that's what Luke did. He just ran one of those here. So if people are interested in getting involved with that, he's already organizing another one for May. So if you wanted to do some of those ideas, he's already planning another one that does exactly that.
And and maybe what has to happen is industry gets behind it. Like, people that other kids would recognize the name and go, oh wow, they're going to be there, and be a part of it. So he's not feeling so isolated, although it sounds like he's certainly getting traction.
Yeah, he did a great job with it.
So,
if I just add, there's a model for that in the film world. It's called Mafia. Make a film in they do it over the weekend or 24 hours. And South by Southwest Film Festival actually has picked that up, and they do that in high schools.
Okay.
And the kids will do that. Maybe they give an idea at the beginning of the weekend. They basically do an all-nighter, and people from the industry come in and help them edit it out and make their ideas. And then they do a little mini film festival for it at South by Southwest, and so that's a great connection maybe with Interactive or something. So there's a model for it that exists. So.
I think there could be, and we think there could be a lot of excitement kind of around that. So then it's just not one school, it's like all these high schoolers who are trying to code can come together, and really there's all of a sudden this community that they didn't know existed. And the whole point is you're pitching it to people who can code and who don't necessarily code, so that everybody comes together. So that was one.
Lonnie has a point.
The STEM Council currently hosts game jams and app jams. We just did one for the Global Game Jam. We're doing one for Rooster Teeth. But space is the big issue, because you need kids to be able to stay there potentially overnight.
Right.
And so we've been working with the universities first, who also have a difficulty with being locked out. But high schools definitely aren't staying open over multiple days on the weekend. So if we can solve the space issue, then we could host it more for that group, but we do host it for 16 to 30-year-olds are allowed to participate.
Okay. 16 to, okay. Yeah.
And it's not just space, it's also availability. You have to have technology there for them to work.
Right.
And that's the expensive part.
So you wonder with Austin and with, you know, spaces like this and other spaces, there's a lot of co-working spaces in town. I don't know if that's not a route to go to at least have that, that part of it. Yeah.
I was going to ask, have you ever looked into trying to coordinate it possibly with either the EMTSEF Science Fair or the Austin Energy Science Fair? Because then you could possibly get an opportunity to maybe get scholarship opportunities with that. Because I help run the EMTSEF Science Fair.
No.
That's the one with the ExxonMobil.
I didn't know if you intended these to be like you had a prerequisite knowledge coming in, or if it was going to be made clear that you don't have to have any ideas or any knowledge of how to do this, because I think it would have been intimidating to me as a high schooler, because I would have been like, well, I don't know what I can make,
Right.
so that's not for me.
Well, what's interesting, if you've ever been to a startup weekend, is that a lot of times you have a mix of the people that come to that. Because you have some that are that have the vision but don't know how to get it done, and you have others who don't know who just love to code but don't have an idea. So you're trying to have, computer science is about coding, but it's about understanding the whole thing too and bringing a group of people together that can then build something really tremendous. Yes?
I've been to a startup weekend before, and it's exactly how you described. They actually encourage people from a bunch of different branches and industries and stuff to go there. And you can share your resources too.
Right.
You can break up and do different things. And I mean, I went there and I don't have any coding knowledge at all, but I easily just, fit right into my little role in the thing. And I think it's a good way to introduce students who not only don't know anything about coding, but also my personal passion is startups and being an entrepreneur. So it introduces students to that aspect too, and I think those kind of go hand in hand a lot of times too. You see a lot of coders and programmers starting their own companies, so I think that's a fantastic idea.
So that was one, and then the other is just, there's so many people, and I think we're all in agreement, that don't know, thank you, that don't know about computer science or what it means or going into that industry. So it's just actually doing organized events at different schools that just talk about it after school to get people to understand what computer science is about. So, okay, yeah.
March 1st, this Saturday, is UT Explore. And every university, every department in the university, including computer science and computer engineering, throws open their department for people to come in and understand what they do, how they do it. So that's a good place to.
Is it yearly or is it every month?
It's everybody. And one of my students did mention that I think they're doing
Explore.
Like an introductory set of tutorials on how to program as one of the computer science activities. So.
And one of the things too that, this just came up for me, is maybe doing a student trip, a class trip to a demo day, and asking, because there's demo days that occur. There was a Techstar demo day completely open, so that you could come and people come on stage and say what they're building and what they're doing, and that could get kids very excited too, to actually see the whole thing unfold in a day. Yeah.
I'd mentioned there's the College and Career Expo at the Palmer Event Center every October, and computer science companies are significantly underrepresented. So if you wanted to demo at that event, there are 100 employers that come there, and it's 3,000 high school juniors and seniors that show up for it.
So calculus says we should coordinate a high school startup event. It sounds like
Luke is already organizing one, so I would build one.
That's what I was going to say. It sounds like the best place to actually go make this happen is coordinate with Luke and his event, and we can pile on, get him more industry support, everything that you talked about. But I think the other piece that Luke's was missing actually, they didn't miss the part. They didn't invite people to come back. Like we visited, but it would have been awesome to have gone back and seen the final projects and have parents there. And I think that's the part we can help them add to the pages.
So Jake, I just met this weekend Shane Reiser from, he was involved in Startup Weekend, How to Start Startup EDU. And I know we want to do one in Austin, a Startup EDU, but I'm going to talk with those guys and see if that's something that they would want to partner with Code Day and with Luke and those guys. Because I think that would be, that would help get the ball rolling on that. Like, they're fully funded and awesome, so why not, partner with them?
Yeah, and I think supporting Luke in any way. I mean, what he did that time was amazing. Like, my students that went said it was amazing. And so to have a high school sophomore pull something off like that, like, let's give him support. Like, that's awesome that he's doing.
Yeah, he had some good industry. But I think Rackspace was sponsoring the event. There's a couple others, I'm forgetting now, but I mean, they were known startups. So I think we can just help have more of a local Austin support.
Can we present our?
Yeah.
So, kind of when Luke was talking, it was very apparent to us that he was very inspirational and very passionate about what he was doing. And we were talking about how there's probably pockets of kids spread out all over the place that might be doing like their own individual thing, and they might just have a small group of friends that are getting together and doing it, like playing Minecraft with their friends and stuff like that. And this past weekend, I got together for the FU weekend. It's called Finish Up Weekend, and it's where you all come together and you work on projects in the same room. And so what was going on was the girls that are developers in Austin realized how many different resources there are out there for all the different female developers. But there was no place to go and find all the information in one location. You had to go to meetup.com, you had to go over to some Facebook pages, you had to check the Twitter page, and there wasn't like a resource for you to, if you weren't tightly knit with the developer community on a daily basis, you wouldn't know what was going on. So they built a specific resource page, like a landing page that ties all that information together. So if we built something like that for these kids like Luke, that allowed them to post, hey, this is my weekend event, this is my meetup at my high school, this is what I have going on over here, and they could empower themselves within this infrastructure we built for them, and then let them take care of it and run it and own it, then I think that would be really empowering for these kids.
So what would that, what's the capture there?
You would need a server, and you would need some code base to start out. You would need to probably work with the kids, like if Luke was interested in putting his resources on there, you would need to work with him to show him how he can, he already knows GitHub, so we would just give him access and he can start pushing and pulling and whatever he needs to do to get his information on there. And then we would need to have people reaching out to the schools to explain to them that these kids, that they can add to this, and then building this site that becomes a community for them within Central Texas.
So community site for the
schools. I think one way to maybe reach out to, like, we're finding this at Bowie is really strong, is like the parent association. So you can find the parent group for that school. That could be really good. Because one thing that was frustrating with me with Luke's day is I sent it to all the computer science teachers in the greater Austin area. And near as I can tell, none of them told their students, because none of their students showed up to that thing, which is really disappointing.
But that might be an issue too. Like, well, we're reaching out to the computer science teachers, but is that going to really spread it any more than it already? Those kids are already interested in computer science. If we did it in a way that maybe could touch.
That's why I think the parent group seems to work well at Bowie, so maybe that would work at other schools as a model.
Yeah.
So create a community platform for high school.
Yeah, or a resource.
What if we actually make this actually physical and have like a fair where schools can demo what their extracurricular computer science activity is, whether school works with Lego Mindstorm or Scratch or whatnot, and they can kind of like show off what they do as a school. Then we can get like principals, administrators, parents to come in and see what these other schools are doing, so they can like talk to them about how to implement that in their school.
Sort of like a science fair, but more of a hack fair, creative fair,
Well, what it makes me think about is what we did. So when I was in Denver, I worked with FBLA, Future Business Leaders of America, and they have like events throughout the year that are like smaller events that the students are doing whatever their role is in the organization. But then at the end of the year, they have like a big awards banquet, and they show off, like the schools get to show off what they built, what they did. I mean, there may be something like that for CS education. Maybe there's not, and maybe that's what needs to be.
That's a good point, because I've coached First Lego League teams for 6 years now. We have yet to have any of our principals show up at the big competition. It's getting those administrators involved. And we're trying to get computer science and robotics started at Bowie High School. I'm the PTSA vice president, and the lady that I'm working with, she actually did a survey this last week, a Survey Monkey, and we got reported back there was 120 students, and she worked through 5 of the math teachers, so they did the survey within their students. So I only had to report after that one day. 120 students responded positively for computer science, 110 responded positively for robotics. So I hadn't talked to her since yesterday to see what the other half was. So that's a fair amount of kids in a high school that we have nothing. What happened is 3 years ago when the RIF came, the principal decided to rip out the computer science. So we have 0 computer science. And especially when the major employers in our area, or Freescale, AMD, like we have all these parents that are working there and then their kids are going to school, and I don't know, there's a big disconnect there.
Before we run out of time, I want to make a big, huge plug for SkillPoint and what Bonnie's doing with the STEM Council. And if you want to do something right now, support their work, because I've been working with those programs in various schools for many years now, and it really does bring these interesting, engaging, real-world experiences into the schools. It's already organized, it's already there, and they do some amazing programs with robotics and with gaming, with all sorts of real-world application of stuff. And every kid that I've seen involved in one of their projects has absolutely loved it. And so I don't know if you want to put your website up there, but you have not done enough shameless plugging, because this is right up the alley of what they're doing, and it exists and it's organized. And it's something that everybody sitting here can get involved with right now. And so I would highly recommend SkillPoint Alliance as a place to start if you want to get involved right now in something that's happening. So
yeah, all the guys who are talking about the groups that they have, if you want participation from the rest of the group, put your website and comment about what it is onto the EdTech Austin Meetup, or onto this website blog, so people know where it is. People aren't going to be able to track all the different websites that can bounce down.
Yeah, actually, just a time thing. I know definitely we wanted to have Lindsay talk about something that they're doing. We want to quickly jump on the rest of the room.
Get the rest of the team.
Yeah, so let's do this like super fast style. Do you have a?
There's a lot of ideas going on. There's a lot of people talking about a lot of stuff out here, but no meshing of concepts. The only thing that's everybody seems to talk about a lot, and I agree, is Luke, who started on his own. He's tired of listening to this cloud, and so he started his own thing. And so since I've worked on both sides, I've worked in education and in the industry during my career, why don't we encourage him to build a management team and find people at other campuses who have a similar interest, at least one person who can be a leader at that campus.
So have you talked to him?
As part of a management team that can take what he started at his school and push it to the other schools.
Yeah.
And then push up from the students.
So he is doing that. So I mean, I've talked with him. He's definitely already in the process of doing that. I think this is a great idea to support that.
He needs a team.
I agree. I think you start with the guys, the students who are already in grassroots movements, and figure out how to support them. I think so far all these ideas are basically helping to support those. Can we get the rest of the action items real quick?
Yeah, so for our team, we had talked about that, first of all, EdTech already has this meshing of educators and geeks. So why don't I leverage that and start actually putting a board together of people that are willing from the computer science world, from the industry, to talk at school or to participate in some way. I mean, you and I have already talked. I've told you I want to help with Aikens or whatever else I can help out with to teach or to participate and contribute in some way.
Yeah.
Why not find other people that are willing to do that and help create that meshing of people that are interested in helping, people and schools that are ready for somebody to help.
I think this is one where we should better leverage. I know SkillPoint, Lottie, you have a system.
Yeah, we talked about this on our group because there's something called Central Texas Discover Engineering, and it's a matching site for educators to request an engineer to come into the classroom and do a 1-hour visit with a hands-on presentation, project presentation. And we were talking about it because, if you're a computer, computer programmer, you may think that that program isn't for you, but so it's possible that we launch another site that's just for computer programming or computer science instead of engineers. But it could be that we need to broaden the message.
So I think we definitely need to do that. I think
I will just say from a
we may support, we may build on existing.
You can say like CS version of centexeweek.org.
Yeah, only on this from a teacher perspective, the idea of just coming out and giving talks isn't real attractive. Like, I'm not saying I wouldn't do it, but like one big for me at least is internship for students. Like I have a ton of students that I have like 5 or 6 that'll go to Indeed this summer and do internship there. And when Indeed found out last year, actually they're going to pay them just like they pay their college interns because they're just as valuable to them. But that's huge, is giving these students opportunities for stuff in the summer.
All right, real quick, because we want to give Lindsay a chance.
Can I just go? I'm gonna go
All
ahead.
right, all right. Yeah. How about this? While Lindsay's talking, why don't people have ideas? Just come and write them.
So I just wanted, my name is Lindsay Stewart, and I work in the Office of Innovation and Development at Austin ISD. And I wanted to let you guys know about a Department of Labor grant that we just submitted January 27th. We're hoping to hear back in the next month or so about whether we get it, but Sarah is handing out a little one-pager about this grant opportunity. The basic gist is the Department of Labor came out with $100 million, and they said we have all this revenue from H-1B visas. We want to reinvest it in high school models that link students with career and industry. That was the basic gist of it. So in Austin, the H-1B visa revenue, or the H-1B visa requests tend to come from the computer industry. So we wrote a grant proposal that would expose students in 3 high schools, Aikens High School, Anderson High School, and Condit High School, to a series of computer programming and computer networking classes. These 3 high schools were chosen because they actually requested it. They were chosen because of geographical diversity and because of socioeconomic and ethnic diversity. There was a lot of points given for schools that had served higher percentages of students of color and low-income students, and exposing more of those students to these opportunities. So the details that we have asked for about $5.7 million, and the program design includes an integrated academic and career-focused learning. So a draft course sequence was developed in partnership with AISD's CTE team and ACC. It's very draft, and I've heard lots of things in here that make me think that there are lots of things that are going to have to change about the draft course sequence. But the idea is that those students would take, in grades 9 and 10, they could take courses that are articulated with ACC, which means they can get credit that's held in escrow. Then if they go to ACC, they can pull down that credit and go straight into coursework, both in CTE and core courses, so they can also bypass a lot of remedial English and math courses. And in grades 11 and 12, they would get dual credit, which is actual college level credit. So they would have an average of 30 post-secondary credits upon graduation, or a maximum of about 60. And then they also would be able to earn a series of industry recognized credentials, and this is the area that I think it would be in development. If we were to get the grant, the idea is that the first 5 months would be planning with industry partners, workforce solutions of the capital area, and ACC and AISD to further develop the curriculum, not only the course sequence, but actually the content of the courses. Sorry, I'm like, what's going on in my head? The courses would culminate in, I'm going to skip ahead. The employers that we have engaged, you can see on the back side, are 3M, Freescale, Google, Intel, IBM, Baker Square, and Samsung. All of those companies signed letters of commitment that they would provide these students with career exploration and preparation activities in grades 9 and 10. So kids would have the opportunity to go on field trips to these industries, to do job shadowing, informational interviews, that kind of thing in grades 9 and 10. And then 11 and 12, they would actually do a 40-hour minimum paid internship. And not all of these companies agreed to do the internship. We can kind of see from the X's that that's the piece that we're hoping by year 4 we'll get more companies involved and feel like they have the buy-in to place these kids, because that is the biggest barrier. is these industries actually wanting to place high school kids as interns. So there's also a career and academic counseling component. I won't go too much into that unless you guys are interested in that. So the work-based learning, like I said, would be a continuum across the 4 years and culminate in this internship, and also all students participating in Skill Point's Velocity Capstone Project, which, Lonnie, do you want to say what that is in a sentence or less?
Just since the companies they all want the students to have internship experience, but they don't want to hire interns, we outsource the internship. So we start a startup company on the campus with 20 to 30 students, and they work for a client on an actual project. And if it's in the school year, they get academic credit. If it's in the summer, they get paid. So I told you it's awesome.
So that's the Skill Point Velocity Capstone is something that exists at the Ann Richards School, and then would be extended to these 3 schools. And the idea too is, I mean, one reason I wanted to share it with this group is that in the process of writing the grant, we ended up talking to just tons of people across all of these areas in the industry, with Lonnie's people, with ACC, and there's a lot of momentum, I think, in the district. And I want you to hear this because I feel like there's lots of roadblocks. But I do think that even if we don't get the grant, if we do get the grant, I think there are ways for you all to be involved, and hopefully we'll get the grant. We've heard it's 275 applications have been received for 25 to 40 awards. So it's very stiff competition, but if we were to get the grant, I think there's lots of ways that this group and industries from this group could be involved. If we don't get the grant, I think that there are still lots of opportunities to be involved and to kind of build off of this momentum within the district and within Austin. You can also see that we partnered with the Austin Chamber of Commerce, the Austin Technology Council, and E3 Alliance. So the other thing I wanted to mention, to maybe add to this list, is our CTE department is sponsoring an industry summit in April, and I don't know all the details yet, but I was told to just let y'all know about that.
So can I ask you just,
yeah.
I'm having trouble processing all that information.
Sorry, I know it's a lot, and that's why I wanted to
Can you give
start
me
earlier.
like the top 3 things that you need that would help if you're talking to people from industry, which a good part of people are, what do you need help with?
So I think if we were to get the funding, I think we're going to need a lot of help with the curriculum development. I think it would be really helpful to have, because you're talking about people in our CTE department that are looking at the TEKS, and I've heard people complaining about the TEKS. I don't know enough about the
Also,
CTE.
the CTE department doesn't know computer science. Like,
No.
there's a lot of great programs that are pre-existing that are already scaled nationwide.
Yes.
That probably won't align. So the problem that I see, well, I'll take it offline with you because it shouldn't.
We're gonna have a long argument with these people that are.
No, I just want to.
So the other thing, so curriculum development is a big piece of it, and I think that having more industry partners at the table to really determine the outcomes that we want these students from, like if you could have an ideal pipeline of students from 9 to 12, what would you want them to come out with at the end of 12th grade? If they're not going to come out with that at the end of 12th grade, what do you want them to come out at the end of a 2-year associate's degree or a 4-year college degree? And then mapping backwards so that we can make sure those students are getting the skills that they need in those classes. So I think the curriculum development piece is huge. I think the teacher professional development piece is also really big. We wrote into the grant a stipend for new hires. We could only do it for a certain amount of money because that's the way the district works. But we did it for the maximum stipend amount. And it's still not going to probably be enough to encourage a lot of people to come into computer science, but we've heard consistently how difficult it is to get good computer science teachers in the classroom. So we know that getting, potentially, I was saying to my group earlier, that potentially getting math and science teachers who we know are already really effective teachers to train up on more of their, maybe they do computer programming on the side, or to learn more about that through consistent professional development throughout the year, and potentially some kind of summer opportunities. And there's money built in to pay teachers to participate in that kind of thing.
So actually, we're about to get physically kicked out of here. I think we got through a lot. We will get on the Facebook page. Lindsay, sorry. Get on the Facebook page.
Yeah, the Facebook group is a good way to communicate quickly, easily. I mean, there's a million different networks, but
Is there a way to send back out to everybody?
Yeah.
Can we do the lightning round on there?
Yeah, let's just do the lightning round through that on the Facebook group. You can post on meetup.com, but let's just all focus everything on the Facebook group. That's the easiest way.
Yeah, if you can put your sheets of paper in the back table there, we'll put them. And we will, so pay attention to the Facebook page, because we actually are gonna go make these happen. That was, and for anybody that suggested these, if you wanna help lead any of these things, let us know.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you all for coming out.